How's it going, everybody? So I just got finished with a hard jiu-jitsu open mat, showered off and everything, and decided I have quite the endorphin rush, and I'm going to drink some amazing tonic herb coffee and address this question about corporate corruption influencing science research. So I actually made a freaking 2 hour long video response to this comment originally. Because I got this comment. It was basically a comment on a video about why you should not intend to detach from the outcome, if you're trying to use manifestation techniques and stuff like that. And instead, you should be focusing on feeling good and enjoying the process and have a goal. And if you want to achieve your goal, you need to have an outcome and be slightly attached to it, yada yada. But anyway, the video really had nothing to do with scientific research, but I got a comment that was completely off topic, basically saying, freaking scientific evidence is often corrupted by, corporate billionaires that want you to buy their pharmaceutical drugs and shit. And it's just like a really off topic question and didn't really make, it was really irrelevant to the subject of the video. But I responded civilly anyway through comments, and the person, of course, is well-meaning and whatnot. However, they went on a long essay about conspiracy theories that really had nothing real to do with the original comment about scientific research being corrupted. And that comment had nothing to do with the original video. So I didn't really know who the person was or where they were coming from. Just because it was so irrelevant and outlandish, and each comment just was even more irrelevant. But either way, I think this person's cool. They've kind of commented on other videos since. Because at first I thought maybe they were a troll or they were someone who was maybe not all mentally there. But now that I've seen their other comments, I know I have a better way of responding. But this video is not just going to be for that person. This is also for other people who don't yet understand how corporate funding actually kind of plays into the larger role of scientific research. And before I even begin this video, let me say that the conspiracy kind of theories and stuff that the person was talking about, I don't disagree with. And I recognize that this greater control, this greater, this greater team of control, let's put it that way, behind the scenes, the majority of the actual evidence that I can see actually suggests that what this person was saying is actually true. But I generally don't talk about conspiracies or I don't want to say any buzzwords because YouTube will probably shadow ban me. Coincidentally, that person's comment that basically outlined these conspiracies and mentioned these different families and all this other stuff, actually mysteriously got deleted. I can't find it on my actual video. Even though I responded to it, I can find their comment in the notification. So YouTube did actually shadow ban that comment. And it does this all the time to people who post conspiracy theories in my comments. I don't delete comments unless they're really bad. To me, this is not something I would delete. So just throwing that out there. But anyway, yeah, I don't disagree with what the person's saying. I just don't focus on it because, number one, I can't because YouTube would delete my shit. Number two, I don't think it's productive. People who aren't already in tune with these greater type of things that are controlling the world, having someone like me tell them all this stuff about, whatever, you're all being lied to. People generally, that doesn't help them. Their beliefs about reality don't change from someone telling them these conspiracies are going on. No matter how much you try to wake someone up, they'll always give you the fluoride stare. Even though I don't believe in that necessarily. Anyway, I also find when it comes to you creating your own reality, I truly don't believe that those conspiracies actually are as relevant as you think. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. So we're talking about science in this video, okay? Before I begin, and what we're specifically addressing is so corporations, large, rich billionaires, organizations, pharmaceutical companies, food companies, the egg industry, the grain industry, the pharmaceutical companies, supplement companies, they fund their own research for whatever product that they're trying to profit off of, okay? And we're going to talk about how that actually influences academia and the actual research and how they actually can modify data to make their products look better than they actually are. We're going to talk about mainstream media and how mainstream media plays a role in all this. And then we're going to talk about, on an actual practical level, how do we navigate this. And before I do that, I want to show you all my coffee. So if y'all want to know, you got real ginseng. Okay, I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's really frothy, and it was actually a lot more frothy before. This is Siberian ginseng, kind of mixed with coffee, yeah, but it was more frothy before. But basically, if you get a good ginseng product, you need to make sure that you blend it in hot water. Preferably, you boil it and make a tea. And you got to make sure those saponins starts foaming up. Okay, that's how you know you got a good ginseng product. Okay, very important. So right off the bat, there's actually ginseng companies that actually create standardized ginseng root supplements, and they basically standardize it for the ginsenosides and the active compounds. And they have like they have an extract like GS4 or something like that. And literally it's only been in existence for the last like 10, 20 years or so. But these companies, like, they'll fund research to make it look like their ginseng product is more effective than just taking the actual root powder and boiling in a tea and like making it the traditional way that's been effective, that's been shown effective in traditional ginseng Chinese medicine textbooks for over thousands of years. And so, yeah, I want to make it clear, just because companies fund research does not mean that there's some grand conspiracy going on. It doesn't mean that they fake data. Okay, let's get that straight. So on one hand of things, so just recently there was like Alzheimer's research that was found to be faked, legitimately faked, where the amyloid plaque theory of Alzheimer's development, basically they use faked brain scans that were modified using like computer image editing programs or something. And one of the researchers is actually out of University of San Antonio, which is where I live, and where I'm going to be getting my graduate's degree from in a couple years. And they found that was legitimately fake data. The thing you have to understand is, number one, faked scientific data is very, very seldomly done in health science, especially if it's surrounding a very important topic like Alzheimer's research. It happens, and researchers being paid off to like modify data in a deceptive way is more common. But fudging data happens, but it's like the most rarest form of data manipulation that there is, when you actually fake brain scans or fake blood tests and stuff like that. Number one, because if the researchers get found out about it, they lose all credibility. A lot of their publications that they were originally paid for, they get pulled from the journals that they were originally published in. They get scrutinized. Basically, their whole career is ruined. They begin to owe a shit ton of money, especially if there's all sorts of other research that is built upon the findings of their papers. That becomes like a serious crime. They become financially fucked. No matter who's backing them or paying them, it's a very, very bad rabbit hole to go down. So researchers almost never, especially these days, like the amyloid plaque research, that was done in a different era, but still relatively recently, like I think 25 years ago, give or take. Anyway, or no, actually, it was a long time ago, depending on which papers we're talking about. Anyway, it's not safe. Most researchers, they recognize this way more risky than the reward. Any amount of money you get for faking brain scans or faking blood tests to prove that the vegan diet is real, is better, or that your ginseng supplement's better. And you know, supplement companies, those researchers generally are not that it's not that big of a deal for supplement research because they're not getting paid as much as like cancer research. It's not a topic where you literally have an entire medical model and pharmaceutical drugs being designed standing upon the foundation of your research. You understand what I'm saying? Where if, like, you know, ginseng supplement research is found out to be fake, it's not that big of a cascade of you know, literature that needs to be modified now, right? Oh shit, like, you know, now we got to, you know, it's like cancer research. It's like, oh my God, everything we know about cancer is based on this fake study. Now we got to change everything. And it's like all these people that died of Alzheimer's, you know, what are they going to do now? Like that they were taking these drugs that we now found the amyloid plaque theory that it's the drugs were based upon. They were taking a drug that wasn't actually really setting themselves up for recovery or improving their symptoms. You know, so now they can sue these companies for negligence and things. So I'm just saying, because that's a serious thing now. And there's a lot of potential, like, those researchers are fucked. Like, bro, like, that's bad. You know what I mean? So even pharmaceutical drugs now, if you're found out, you know, maybe you have, like, all these lawyers and stuff that can try to save you. But that even with the pharmaceutical backing, like, when we're talking about actual reality and what actually happens, yeah, bad things happen when you're found out, no matter who you're backed by. And I'm not going to name names, but let's just look at some recent trials. You know, he didn't kill himself. You know what I'm talking about? Those people get punished. It's just on the hush hush. Anyway, so where am I going with that? So if corporations don't generally like fake scans like that and fake research per se, like fake blood tests and stuff, how do they modify research? Okay, well, let's look at it in a way in a pill that's going to be hard for us to swallow, presuming that you all are following my channel because you're like animal-based diet people and stuff like that, right? So look, I eat at least a dozen eggs a day, but I'm well aware that the egg industry is well known to publish research that's deceptive. It uses to try to make it seem like eggs are, you know, the eggs don't like raise LDL cholesterol, for example. Okay? So look, first of all, in regards to heart disease, the debate is not about does eating cholesterol raise your cholesterol, okay? Because eating dietary cholesterol does not raise your blood cholesterol. Eating saturated fat has been proven, one of the very few things without a shadow of a doubt, it's been proven in metabolic ward studies. The more saturated fat you eat in your diet, the more your LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol will raise in a dose-dependent manner. And then there is a threshold around 300 nanograms per deciliter where your cholesterol doesn't really rise anymore in response to diet. Now, that highly depends on genetics and stuff like that, but there's a cutoff point where your body just cannot synthesize any more LDL or total cholesterol in the blood, right? Past like 300 nanograms per deciliter, give or take. But we know, like, if you take a vegan who has like under 90 nanograms per deciliter of LDL cholesterol, you know, it's not even cholesterol. It's not that it matters. Low density lipoprotein, not actually cholesterol, whatever. Anyway, you take a vegan with like rock bottom LDL, under 70 nanograms per deciliter. You give them one egg a day, they will have like 5 to 10 point increase in their LDL from that one egg a day. You give them 4 eggs a day, they're going to have maybe, you know, who knows, like a 20 to 40 nanogram per deciliter increase in their LDL. And eventually, the more, you know, they're going to, if they keep increasing saturated fat, they're going to get to a point where blood LDL levels and blood cholesterol does not raise anymore. But from baseline, if they already had rock bottom LDL or total cholesterol, eating butter, anything with saturated fat, okay, will increase LDL in a dose-dependent response, okay? Now, that is proven in metabolic ward studies where they control all variables, okay? The question is, though, does the LDL set you up for a heart disease risk? I made videos talking about this, okay? The evidence-based community, okay, that are not generally vegan advocates or anything like that per se, but a lot of them do believe plant-based diets are healthier and they believe saturated fats are harmful. The evidence-based mainstream nutrition people, I'm talking Sigma Nutrition, Lane Norton, Kevin Bass, whatever. Alan Aragon, okay, these people believe you need to limit saturated fat below 10 to 15% of fat calories per day or something to, preserve heart health. And that's based on the idea that higher LDL cholesterol over the lifespan increases your risk for incidences of heart disease. And I made videos talking about the research and whether there's a causal link or not and how credible that is, okay? And I can understand why they think that there's a causal link, because in nutrition research, it's not based on cause or effect. It's not based on proofs. It's not as easy as 1 + 1 = 2, like mathematics. It's not as easy as, we have this population study that shows the people who eat the most cholesterol and have the greatest LDL over the lifespan, they have more instances of heart disease than people who eat less cholesterol or have less LDL in their blood. That doesn't prove causation, When you have like thousands of people who live in China, like the China study, for example, and you're measuring just like their outcomes and their dietary factors per se, right? Food questionnaires. Or cohort studies where you see the more fruits and vegetables people eat, the better their health outcomes or whatever. Like those are not indicative of cause and effect. It's just data that allows us to ask more questions and see and make kind of like connections in our mind when we combine other forms of evidence so that we can try to figure out what's most likely the truth. But still, we're like, it's possible that there might be other explanations. No matter what form of evidence you're using or how many forms of evidence you combine, you're never going to be 100% sure what's going on in nutrition science. So anytime you have anybody who's like really certain about what they think is going on, and they're like, yeah, motherfucking vegan diet will indeed set you up for nutrient deficiencies. I don't think I ever say that. Maybe a couple times might have inferred something of that sort. It's like if you say something like that, you have to have the caveat of, but it's possible that I'm missing something. Because if we're being scientifically accurate, literally anything can be the case, right? And I did a video explaining the difference between communicating science as a clinician, where you're giving people actual recommendations. You have to sound more convincing and certain, compared to an academic. An academic cares more about scientific accuracy and truth, and the more accurate you're trying to be, the more uncertain you're going to sound. The problem is, as a clinician, when you're a doctor or you're a nutritionist, you cannot give people like, oh well, the evidence suggests that, we're not really sure what actually causes heart disease. However, there's these studies on, people that do have heart disease and they're on pharmaceutical drugs, and they show like lower risk of heart attacks with the statin drugs. But of course, at the same time, they actually die of at a higher rate from Alzheimer's disease. So we don't really know what's really going on there. You can't tell your patients that. They'll be like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about?" Most people, you'd be lucky if they even like eat a good, what you tell them to eat. You know what I mean? You'd be happy if they even exercise once a week. But anyway, so I'm just saying, no matter what the science says, you can never be fully sure of what's actually going on. So that's important to understand. With that alone, you understand the egg research. It's like, it's not actually like controlling me or brainwashing me, because I am utilizing critical thinking and nuance. So anyway, let's get back to that egg example. So where I was going with that is, the egg industry has actually funded research that basically they use a deceiving study design to make their study look like it concludes something that it actually isn't able to show. All right. So for example, what they did in one study is they basically put people on a they gave people like 4 eggs a day or whatever, and they measured their cholesterol after like 12 weeks of consuming 4 eggs a day added on top of their regular dietary intake, and they showed something like there was no significant increases in blood cholesterol over time or something like that. Where they basically just measured blood cholesterol after like 4 weeks and then after 12 weeks. And they showed at the end of the study, at the end of the 12 weeks, their blood cholesterol was the same as it was at 4 weeks, adding 4 eggs a day. But the problem is they didn't actually measure their blood levels of LDL cholesterol before the study. They didn't have a baseline test. Because like I mentioned earlier in this video, if you take a vegan with rock bottom cholesterol and then you add 4 eggs a day, their cholesterol will go up in a direct relation to the amount of saturated fat that they're eating in their diet. And so 4 eggs a day is not that much saturated fat. Let's be real there. There's like 2 grams of saturated fat per egg. And there's 6 grams of total fat or something like that. And so whatever. The point is, if they had like rock bottom cholesterol at baseline, if they're vegans, then you would see like a significant increase in LDL cholesterol at the end of the 12 weeks. But that increase would increase in the first 4 weeks, and it would stay consistent based on the amount of saturated fat they added to their diet. So the point is, though, without a baseline LDL test, you don't actually know what those eggs were doing. You know what I mean? You only know what those eggs, you only know, after 4 weeks, and then after 12 weeks. So they didn't fake the blood test. They changed the study design in a way that fits their narrative, okay? So let's talk about another. So that was the egg industry, and there's a lot of things you can look at. So here's another thing. So there's like vegan advocates, okay, who indirectly like fund researchers who you really have to dig down the rabbit hole to figure out that they're funded by the freaking whatever soy milk industry or something, right? Or Loma Linda University or something, right? Well, anyway, so there was research that was funded, and I need to make another video about this pretty soon because vegans still use this research, where they showed the populations of people who drink the most dairy in the world, mostly like Northern Europeans or whatever, basically places where it's extremely cold, okay? Like it was like Ireland and Scotland or whatever, that they also have the greatest risk of osteoporosis and the lowest bone mineral density, or the highest risk of fractures in the world or something, right? And they're said to eat the most dairy or whatever, right? However, so then they're like, look, so drinking more milk and dairy obviously doesn't save your bones and blah blah blah. However, what they fail to recognize is the specific populations of people that they're talking about. Number one, the data was collected around a time when the sun is out the least. Number two, in those populations of people, despite eating all that dairy, if it's raw dairy, which over there it's a lot less tampered with. I don't know if they supplement vitamin D in it. But those people, they also get the least amount of sunlight in the entire world, unless we're talking like Antarctica and places like that. And so where I'm going with that is the populations of people who drink the most dairy, in those populations, they also get the least amount of sunlight. And so it's like, yeah, you're getting all this calcium and whatnot from the milk, maybe vitamin D and this and that, but you're also getting the least amount of sunlight. And there's a wide variety of other confounding variables in that research, okay? But anyway, I'm just saying it's like they're giving you a picture of what's going on based on, you know, they're not telling you the whole story. But they're not directly faking data, okay? They're not like faking the statistics or something. They're using a study design or using a population of people that can give you an idea that suits their narrative, even though it's not actually accurate within practical reality. Now, I will say, I think, you know, they also eat a lot of fish and fish liver and this and that, and I think, you know, they shouldn't have, like, you know, low bone mineral density if they're eating all that dairy, because it has vitamin D and K2 and this and that too. But I'm just giving you all examples, you guys and girls. So another one is like the vegan science, right? So Dr. Dean Ornish, okay, and there's other doctors too, but Dr. Dean Ornish, okay, he got famous for funding one of the first like comprehensive lifestyle programs, like the Ornish Solution or whatever, that basically in his clinic he actually showed a slight regression in plaque. Now, there's a lot of things to talk about in regard to this. Before we go any further, I want to make it clear. Somebody with a lot of money has to fund research, okay? Just because research is funded by someone who profits off of the research, it does not mean that that research is part of some grand conspiracy, big broccoli, or that the research is completely fucked and you can't fucking trust no one, okay? What it means is you got to be an intelligent motherfucker, not be intellectually lazy, and just learn. Educate yourself on how to interpret research, okay? It's not what to think, it's how to think. The number one reason why people get bamboozled, like the other day, like I get comments from people, what's the best diet for me? I don't know who to fucking trust. I don't know what diet expert to believe in, you know? And conversely, I'll have people that grill me and call me an idiot and you're stupid and you're like lying to people, you know, because they disagree with the shit that I'm saying. The problem with people is they expect to just, you know, listen to what I'm saying and just be able to believe everything I'm saying, or see the conclusion of a study and believe it. That's not how living life works. You need to actually use discernment and caution. You know, don't reject outright things that you're like skeptical about, like the law of attraction or carnivore diet or vegan or whatever. But be skeptical, but don't outright reject it, but also allow yourself to entertain it slightly. The problem people get is they're either, oh no, that sounds like bullshit, where's your evidence? You know, anecdotes don't matter, you're full of crap. Or else they're like, oh, science is complete bullshit. Yeah, it sounds, you know, common sense, bro. My ancestors did it, whatever. You know, yeah, the Illuminati, you know, they're against it, therefore it's probably healthy or something. So anyway, we need to be critical thinkers, not allow extremism in one way or another fuck us over, and just like critically evaluate things. But scientific research has to be funded by someone. Okay? So anyway, you know, Inverta Health, they're one of the greatest like low carb research establishments in the world, and they help patients with type 2 diabetes reverse their diabetes using keto and low carb and carnivore diets. And there's other ones too, Dr. Eric Westman and like Advantage Health or whatever. And they fund their own research and shit, because who else will? So anyway, where was I going with this? So anyway, motherfucking Dr. Ornish, okay, he funded research to show that he actually was able to cause a slight regression in plaque in his patients that already had heart disease okay? And they use a low-fat, plant-based diet as part of the protocol to reverse or to cause regression of the plaque. Now, first and foremost, okay, the question is, how significant was the regression? Okay, and if I remember correctly, it was like a 2% regression over the span of a couple months or something. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm never going to have a heart attack again. I have crystal clean arteries now. Thank you, Dean Ornish, and your fucking, salad rabbit food diet or whatever, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, I can fucking never have a heart attack. Thanks to this vegetarian diet. That was not the case, okay, first of all. The magnitude of effect of most nutrition studies are not that great, okay? I'll also say, just as a side note, the A to Z weight loss study was a study that directly compared the Ornish diet to the Atkins diet as well as the Zone diet and then 2 government-funded kind of American Diabetes and Blood Pressure Association diets. And the abstract only showed the weight loss was like triple the improvements in weight loss using the Atkins diet without even counting calories. But if you look at the full text, you'll actually find that they measured cholesterol levels, HDL, LDL, blood pressure, blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C, weight gain. They measured all the most important blood markers of health. It was a 12-month study. They measured baseline. They measured 2 months. They measured every 2 months up to 12 months. So there is a study like that exists. And that's the only study of its kind that I'm aware of that directly compared 2 different people. They had 4 different diet groups, including the vegetarian low carb and the Atkins, eat a bunch of salt, eat a bunch of fat, animal-based diet. And they had dietitians help as well. So just throwing that out there that study does exist, and I don't hear about it enough. Okay, it's called the A to Z weight loss study. Not the abstract, the full text. Look at the graphs and shit. So anyway, back to the Ornish diet. So the Ornish diet, they did actually find a slight regression in plaque. But it was so clinically insignificant that it's like the magnitude of effect, would that actually set you up for less heart attacks moving forward? Because there's still such a high amount of plaque, despite the fact that you might be regressing it slightly, that, it's like, that's not really that impressive. That's the first thing. The second thing is, not only did they eat a vegetarian diet on the Ornish program, they also added a pretty intensive exercise program, okay, that was clinically prescribed, and they had meditation and stress reduction, which by itself, we know the expectation effect, the placebo effect, and stress, mostly eustress, coined by Dr. Hans Selye, who was basically the founder of the stress effect on the body kind of theory. Hans Selye, eustress, also known as your perception of stress, how you interpret that stress, that plays a major role in your health outcomes and physiology. And so anyway, with stress reduction methods like meditation, breathing, and stuff like that, positive affirmations, guided imagery, those were all part of the Ornish diet, and I think they're on statin drugs, some of them. So, look, not only the Atkins, or not Atkins, Dr. Ornish, not only the Ornish, was I saying Atkins this whole time? The Ornish protocol. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So the Ornish was the first one to do that. Then, I don't remember who it was. It wasn't Colin Campbell. I think it was Caldwell Esselstyn. He made a video, or he was famous for he made books like Make Yourself Heart Attack Proof, and he was famous for saying, as long as your fucking LDL cholesterol is below 70 nanograms per deciliter. Bro, who the fuck has under 70 nanograms per deciliter? People who are on the verge of death. Or people who are on statin drugs. Even vegans have a hard time getting their damn LDL that low. Anyway, he was famous for saying, as long as you have your LDL in those cryptic ranges below 70 nanograms, that you will never, it's impossible to have a heart attack. He literally said that, which is insane. You have ketogenic doctors like Dr. Timothy Noakes, MD. Look him up in Australia. He was on trial for a Twitter post where someone asked him if ketogenic diets were safe for kids. And he basically said, yes, I don't see any reason why a child would have a trouble eating a keto diet. And now he was on trial and shit like that. Then you have these fucking vegan doctors who are like, no, as long as, you cannot have a heart, you can do whatever, you can eat whatever, as long as your fucking LDL cholesterol is below 70 nanograms per deciliter, you will never have a heart attack. Bro, that to me sounds like real criminal negligence, okay? And there's a lot of counteracting evidence to that. There's studies actually show something like 65%, some like 57% or more of patients that actually are hospitalized with heart attacks have LDL levels below 70 nanograms per deciliter, right? And so you'll have doctors that they say, oh, it's a mysterious phenomenon that just happens when people are in the hospital, their LDL goes that low. And I'm like thinking to myself, I don't know about this, but okay. So anyway, there's a lot of research that directly counteracts this idea. And I have Instagram posts about it, but where I'm going with this, though, Caldwell Esselstyn funded trials, like intervention trials, just like the Ornish program, okay, where they showed like regression in plaque, and it was more significant than Ornish's regression in plaque studies. The main problem that you have to kind of look at, again, is that a lot of these patients, I believe, were on statin drugs, and they also included other changes in their diet. And there were a lot of patients that had to just drop out of the trial because they couldn't adhere to the diet. And also, I think there were patients that actually couldn't adhere to the diet, because there was a large percentage of patients that couldn't adhere to the diet. And I think that they kept them in the study or something like that. Some weird controversy you found afterwards. So what I'm getting at here is that there are parts of these studies that are not emphasized enough that can completely change how they're practically applied to humans in real practical application. And it's not that they're faking evidence per se. It's that they're using study design, and they're including different factors in the protocol, and they're overemphasizing parts of the study that are in alignment with what they want to prove. But they're not faking evidence. And the reason why this is important is that as long as you are skeptical when you are hearing people that are, when you see these fuck asses, especially like vegan people, who flash studies in front of you on the screen, or carnivore people like Paul Saladino, or BioLane, Lane Norton, just because they're referencing research and they flash on the study doesn't mean that the study actually is that relevant or shows. The study could be great, but the magnitude of effect, the amount of risk reduction of a protocol might be so low that if you actually try the protocol, it would make no real fucking difference in your actual life. Like the fruit and vegetable research, the absolute risk of diseases don't really decrease that much when you include eight cups of vegetables a day when we look at the actual research. There's a lot of other things that make way more of a difference, like mostly calorie count and staying active, really, no matter what diet you eat. And that's really what the research on vegetables to me actually shows. But anyway, as long as you know how to interpret research and you're aware of the various, types of research and the confounding variables you have to consider. Like, for example, in heart disease, bro, there are literally hundreds of confounding variables, even in intervention trials where you're literally putting someone on a diet and measuring blood markers. There are so many things that change your insulin sensitivity, fasting insulin, your hemoglobin A1C, your LDL cholesterol, And we don't even know. Like, we could try to measure calories. We could have people track their calories in MyFitnessPal or something for a year. But do you really know for sure that these people are tracking properly? So I'm just throwing this out there. Even in a metabolic ward, there are so many fucking confounding variables involved. And I'm not saying research is useless. I'm just saying that there needs to be, you need to know how to interpret research, okay? So in regards to corporations funding research, number one, it's not a fucking conspiracy. It's just the way that all things in life happen. We all need to make profits. And it's not just the fucking grain industry or Dean Ornish or vegan people or whatever, thing you think, NWO or some shit. It's not that. It's the egg industry, the freaking grain industry, pharmaceutical industry, the supplement industry. Like I was talking about earlier, there's ginseng supplements that fund research, okay? So, I mean, maybe there's like a big, but I just don't, you can fund all the research you want. Most people don't give a fuck about research. That's the other thing. I'm sure you, the person who made that comment, no offense, but you probably don't actually, how many times have you read research on this level that I'm talking about, where you're actually able to see, oh, they didn't measure cholesterol at baseline. That's how you're able to tell that, eggs didn't increase your cholesterol levels, okay? Do you really read research on that level? Probably not, and that's why you're kind of, thinking it's so important that, So anyway, the next part of that, of their comment, though, was oh, well, the news, okay? So look, the news doesn't give a fuck about research either. The problem isn't these large corporations having, the news selectively choose bad studies. That's not it. No. First of all, the news, yeah, they're funded by these motherfuckers, right? But look, you have to understand, the news was really advertising low-carb diets throughout the 90s. The news a lot of times will say, oh, butter in your coffee is good for you and this and that. Bob Harper didn't even drink butter coffee, by the way, but he was on the news advertising butter coffee. It's not a damn plant-based conspiracy. The only reason people think that it's a damn conspiracy and the news are involved in this and that with plant-based diets is because people, y'all are dogmatic echo chamber motherfuckers. No offense, but because I'm an animal-based guy too. But y'all are paying attention to Sean Baker and they want you to believe there's a conspiracy, which I'm not saying there's not, but so that they can get you emotionally involved in their message. Then that's a cult. They create cults that way, even though I'm a meat-based guy too. But I'm not dogmatic. I'm sorry. So anyway, in regards to the news, whatever the fuck's going to give them clicks, okay? They want you. They're oh my god, study shows eggs will send you on the fast track to heart disease, right? Back in the day when television was more popular, the news might go on at 5 p.m. and they'll give you an advertisement at 12 noon when you're eating lunch. They'll be new study shows fucking, you can eat 5 eggs a day and it actually doesn't cause heart disease. We'll have more on that at 5 p.m., So that you're oh fuck, if I eat eggs, will that kill me? I gotta watch the news. They will say whatever, they'll blow shit out of proportion. They'll take a study that just says, oh, you might have a 4% increase in your relative risk of heart disease if you eat more meat or something, right? And it'll be study shows if you're a red meat eater, you might be setting yourself up for fucking heart disease, Is that 12-ounce steak you're eating at Texas Roadhouse gonna put you at an early death? Find out at 9 p.m., They want you to be hooked on their fucking product. That's what it is. It's not necessarily motherfucking Bill Gates, trying to brainwash you using the news, okay? I'm not saying that shit doesn't go on. I'm just saying, a lot of the brainwashing is it's us. It's because we want to believe, oh, fuck, these vegan people, they're just brainwashed sheep. That's what people want to believe because it's easier to believe that. It fits your narrative and it makes it easier. So you can just call everyone else stupid, brainwashed fucks. But it's harder to have empathy. It's harder to be like, oh, that person is just interpreting, information the same way I am, and they have different experiences with different diets, with different health gurus. Okay, you can have 10 different PhD researchers that all went to the same fucking school, and they can all read that same one study and have a completely different interpretation of that one study. Okay? It doesn't matter how much that you think the Illuminati fucking invested in that study. Okay? There's still going to be 10 different interpretations from 10 different doctors with the same fucking PhD education and the same fucking, But typically, though, different schools and professors and doctorate programs and whatnot, they will actually influence you in different ways, okay? You have to understand it's the individual, it's your interpretation, and it's your level of experience and knowledge that dictates how you're going to interpret these things. The problem's not the fucking Illuminati's brainwashing motherfuckers, The real problem is your critical thinking, learning how to think, and understanding that other people are just thinking about this subject a little bit differently. And the thing is, this is why I don't really get as triggered by other people anymore, vegan people and this and that. What does bother me is when people are absolutists and they're like, protein is bad for you. And then when I start to ask them questions, they're like, oh, I don't know, man. I'm like, actually, the protein thing. They're like, yeah, protein is ruining your lifespan and this and that. It might cause kidney disease and this and that. And I'm like, well, actually, this has been studied, in there was a 3-year intervention trial that measures, albumin in the urine and markers of kidney damage. And all the studies on protein actually shows up to 3 grams per pound of body weight per day over the long term doesn't really show any indication of kidney damage, And then I also, the research actually shows as you get older, you become more anabolically resistant and actually need more protein because you absorb less. And the main kind of indicator of early death past the age of 65 is actually muscle mass and things that are involved in protein metabolism. Yeah, tell these motherfuckers this is a real shit that happened. And the guy's like, oh, I don't know, man. Studies, and they'll say, studies are corrupt, bro. I don't listen to fucking studies. Corporate corruption, bro. You know what I mean? The fucking protein industry, bro. I just follow my common sense. To me, that is what pisses me off, okay? And I say piss me off, what I mean is it bothers me. Because to me, I know that this person there's a rabbit hole they're not going down, and they're literally like, they're choosing to be ignorant because they don't have the will to actually question and see, well, what is actually going on here? And they're just like holding on to a belief for many reasons, mostly because people want that safety blanket of knowing for sure what's going on. But unfortunately, science doesn't work that way. But if you do look at the evidence of protein and longevity, again, it's like it points pretty clearly to a direction that more protein is probably better. Strength training is probably better for longevity. And these hippie-ass raw vegan motherfuckers, don't get me started. So, and these protein restriction fuckers, okay, that tell you that mTOR and all this shit's going to kill you in the long term. Not when we look at practical studies in actual human outcomes, health outcomes. But when you look at isolated rat studies and, taking a fucking, a colon in a test tube and exposing it to fucking, whatever. What's that damn molecule that's produced from choline in the intestine? And then it's supposed to, whatever. Anyway, I can't even think, man. I haven't eaten all day, and I just finished jiu-jitsu before I made this, and I think the coffee's kicking in. But, yeah, so the problem is not corporate corruption. The problem is fuck-asses who think it's not worth being skeptical about the evidence because, all studies is corrupt and this and that. That puts you in a really handicap position. Not handicap position. What's the word? Disabled. Cognitively, you're like at a disadvantage if you are just like, oh, research is all fucked. Can't trust it. Okay, you have to understand it works both ways. A big reason why a lot of these vegan fuckers are able to believe in shit that might not really be completely accurate is the same reason that carnivore motherfuckers can it's not a really but this is the problem. These carnivore people, it's easier for them to make you believe in their message if you're just like, yeah, vegan people are worshipping Bill Gates, motherfuckers. It's all conspiracy. Like, I'm not disagreeing that those conspiracies are play a role in certain things, right? Don't get me started on Bill Gates and all that shit. But look, when it comes to so anyway, I'm done repeating the same shit. Hopefully this made sense. I have a lot more to talk about, and I'll do it some other time.